Recording from the USP headquarters in Miami, Florida, the University of Sports Podcast second episode. Since 1994, USP has helped and guided over 1,700 student athletes to secure their future, and now we want to help you, sharing great stories, tips, and guidelines that will boost your recruiting. I'm Carlos Onate, and I'm here with Thomas Anderson, CEO and founder of University Sports Program. Hey, Thomas.
Carlos, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, very good. I mean, trying to find, time in this crazy week that we live in, this college recruiting. Every day we have so much work going on with coaches and clients, helping them, find the right school. So, finding this little space of time to share with the podcast and talk about different topics, I really enjoy it, and I'm sure you do too.
I enjoy it a lot, and we made this commitment. We are doing this podcast, and we are doing 2 episodes every month. And we're sticking to it. So we're in the middle of everything here. The agents, they need to leave the office because they have phone calls and meetings and stuff. They will keep interrupting us. But we will find the space, the time to do it every 2 weeks for sure.
Yeah, and the last couple of weeks have been great. We're now in February, end of February. So the few clients that we still have around that are going to be placed for fall 2020 have been closing the deals.
Right. This is crunch time.
This is crunch time. We're very happy because some very big names, very big schools will make those announcements very soon.
And let me tell you, the first episode feedback has been great. I mean, not a lot of views or listens, but those that listen in and saw it, they like it a lot, and a bunch of questions, and they want us to keep doing it, and let's go for it.
Okay, great.
Okay, so this is the USP second episode, the University Sports Podcast second episode. And we decided to not wait any longer and go right to the chase, to the question that everyone asks, the thing that all student athletes want. Every athlete is looking for. What is it? A scholarship. Yeah. That's the first thing. And many times I deal with a lot of parents and students for the first time when they first contact us. And one of those, the always question is, what is my scholarship going to be? How much scholarship can I get? Can I get a scholarship? So the scholarship is something that everyone is looking for. And there are many misconceptions about scholarships, especially for athletes and for international athletes. And that is, in many cases, the first touch with reality that we have, we give them when we explain the reality that through the scholarships. And let me clarify, today we're talking about athletic scholarships. There are many scholarships, a spectrum of options, private, for merit, for many reasons. But today we're going to focus on athletic scholarships. So let's go over some myths, and you will tell me, based on your experience and all the years you've been working with student athletes, which of these are actually myths and which are, true.
True, yeah.
Okay? So myth number 1, I will get a full ride. I will receive a full scholarship based on my athletic profile.
So when you hear the word scholarship, you think it's free. So I'm gonna have a scholarship, I'm not paying anything.
Right.
Okay, and that's definitely a myth, because scholarships are some kind of help the university is willing to give you to make the financial burden a little easier on your pocket. So athletic-wise, colleges have limits of how much scholarship they could give. It depends on the division, depends on the sport. For example, for Division I men's tennis, it's 4.5 scholarships at a maximum
per team.
For men, for girls is 8 full scholarships. For soccer is 9.9. So every sport has different amount limits that they could have. So when a coach is looking for a player, trying to recruit a player, he's willing to give some scholarship, but cannot afford really to give full scholarship to everybody. Otherwise, he's going to have a very short team with scholarship, and then he's going to have a lot of players or athletes without a scholarship. What that means is that you're not going to have a deep roster. You're going to have top athletes at the top, and then you're going to have a bunch of other athletes who don't have scholarships, so they usually are not going to be a high impact. So what the coach wants to do is he wants to stretch the scholarships and give percentages. So you give a 50% to a player, you give a 60% to another one, then another one you get 20%, and then you could have your 4.5 among maybe 9 or even 10 players for tennis. Okay, same thing happens for other sports. So when you expect a full scholarship, if you really want to get a full scholarship, you should be what's called a high impact athlete. You should be one that is going to come in and make a difference on the team the first year. So if you're in a tennis team, you're going to be playing number 1 or number 2 your first year, and maybe you deserve a full scholarship because you have a high world ranking, a very high UTR. If you're going to play soccer or baseball, or you're going to be a golfer, same thing. You got to come in as an impact athlete, a difference maker. In that case, those athletes may receive close to a full scholarship the first year. But in other cases, in most cases, Carlos, and that's the way we work here. It's a combination of getting some percentage for athletics and maybe some percentage if they're good students for academics. So the short answer is, no. Most scholarships are going to be partial based on your academic, at your athletic level, and you could add some academic scholarship if you have the academic level.
Would you say that most of this misconception about the full ride comes from football or basketball, where the reality is totally different? I mean, if you follow college sports, you know that all these football players are getting a full ride, Division One. So many student athletes think that extends to other sports as well.
Yeah, the head count sports. Head count sports like women's basketball, men's basketball, the football teams, women's tennis, women's gymnastics, those are all head counts, which means that everybody who is on a scholarship is in a full scholarship. There's no partial. So you either are on a scholarship or you don't have anything. There's no percentages. All other sports, it's basically based on percentage.
And you're talking about Division One, but that's only one part of it. Then you have Division Two, Division Three, NAIAs, junior colleges, and other schools. And that's a whole different thing.
It's a whole different thing. So it varies by division, and for example, Division 3 doesn't even have athletic scholarships. So
most likely, if you're an athlete, you're not getting a full ride. There are more chances that you get a partial scholarship. You will need to see your specific sport, your specific profile, what's your level, what's going to be the impact that you bring to the sport. But chances are, full ride is not what's coming.
No, it will be unrealistic for you to hope that you're going to get a full ride. Now, remember that when we work with our clients here, we take scholarship into account because we know most of our clients will hope to get some kind of scholarship, and we do get them scholarships. But we tell the family it should not be the first priority. We want to make sure you go to the right school based on your academics, based on the size of the school, based on your athletics, location, weather, whatever. And we also want to make sure it's within the budget. But sometimes the full scholarship is at the wrong school. So you may have a full scholarship at a very small school in the middle of nowhere, and you're not going to be happy there, and so it doesn't make any sense to go for the scholarship. So you got to be very careful about that.
And we're going to expand in college financials and how to pay for college and how to go to college without debt and more like that. But today we want to stick to the athletic scholarship issue, but in later episodes we're going to expand on that because that's a very, very important thing. Okay, so myth number 2. Many athletic scholarships open every year. I have plenty of opportunities because every year more and more scholarships will come.
So when I said before, there's 4.5 scholarship for men's tennis Division 1 and 8 for women, the first thing people think is, okay, so maybe when there's going to be 4.5 scholarship next year for this team, and there's going to be 8 scholarships for this other team. And the truth is not. The amount of scholarships that exist is based on how many student athletes are graduating and how much scholarship do they have. So if a team has no seniors, that coach has no openings and has no scholarship to give out because there's nobody graduating. Now, if that coach has one senior that has 50% scholarship, that coach has only 50% scholarship to replace that senior. So there's not a lot of scholarships opening every year. The amount of scholarship that opens up depends on how many student athletes are graduating and how much scholarship do they have that they're going to free up. Okay, it's the same thing. I guess in professional sports, when you have
a cap.
Yeah, you have a cap, and when you trade a player to another team, that amount of money opens up.
Right.
So same thing for college sports.
Right. So let's make an example. So let's say this coach, this particular sport has a cap of 5 scholarships, okay, to make it easier to calculate. And school costs $20,000 per year in this example, okay? So the coach's budget is $100,000, correct? it doesn't mean that he has $100,000 every year for scholarships. That's the amount that he has to distribute to all his students in general. So every year, it's not that he's renewing the $100,000. It will depend on what's going on with the team.
Right.
So if in a particular year, two students are transferring, or one is graduating and one is transferring, or somebody quit the team or something like that, then that opens whatever this kid has as a scholarship.
Exactly.
Am I correct?
Exactly right.
So when you talk to schools, it doesn't matter what type of cap. I mean, the cap will give you an idea what will happen, but in reality, you need to talk to the coach and figure out what is his situation, scholarship wise, and see if it fits your budget.
Yeah, and that's why when we do our research for colleges, we look at how many seniors does a team have. If we're going to play somebody in 2021, we want to know how many kids are graduating in the spring of 2021,
Right.
and we know how many players the coach is going to replace, and then we find out how much scholarship they have. But yeah, that's how it works.
Okay, so we have another one, and this one is a concern that many parents have, and I think they think something that they think it is. Myth number 3 is athletic scholarships are guaranteed for 4 years for my entire tenure in the school.
Yeah. So if you get hired to work for a company, you're guaranteed to work for that company for 4 years.
For life. Yeah.
For-
Not even for 4 months, right?
Well, it's even worse. You could get hired. You could get fired the next month. But in
Right.
college, they will respect that 1 year. They can't take away a scholarship during that year. They're, regardless if you get injured or regardless, you have to respect. Unless you get into, some serious troubles like maybe drugs or something like that, then they could take that away. But scholarships is a 1 year deal for most universities, with some exceptions. Like in the Power 5 schools, those conferences, they could guarantee you a 4 years of scholarship, and they can't
Okay.
touch you.
So there are occasions
Yeah.
where you can actually guarantee
Yeah.
more than a year or even 4 years.
And they use it as a selling point, because if they want a player, an athlete who's very strong, they know that if they offer them a 4 year deal, they have an advantage versus
Right.
other universities.
Right, and
So-
I can imagine being a student athlete and getting an offer, full ride, and then getting another offer from another school, same offer, but they guarantee it for years.
Yeah.
That will be
Yeah,
huge
that's
for
huge.
me. Yeah.
That's huge. That's huge because you don't know how you're going to perform.
Right.
You may your level must start going down, and the coach is disappointed, but he can't take away the scholarship
Right.
because he's guaranteed. But in most cases, it's not like that. In most cases, a 1 year deal. At the end of the year, the coach sits down with the athletes and they does a performance evaluation and see how you did on the court, off the court, if you really worked hard and you participate in trainings and you didn't miss practices and stuff like that. And then the coach most likely will renew the scholarship unless you give him a big reason for not.
And can the coach improve my scholarship? Can it
Yeah.
get better?
Yeah, and that's very important because a lot of, for example, if I'm going to go to University of Miami, we're going to talk to Laura now in a minute. But if you go to University of Miami and the coach says, listen, I only have, 50% because that's all I have left. But if you do well and you play in the top of the lineup for your second year, I could give you 20% more. So every year it could change. Again, depends how much scholarship opens up every year. But yes, it could go up and it could go down.
Could go down too.
Yeah,
Okay.
could go down.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Myth number 4: athletic scholarship cannot be combined with any other type of financial aid. So if I'm getting a scholarship, that's it. I can add anything else because that's what I get.
Yeah. So in most cases, there's exceptions. But in most cases, universities allow you to combine athletics with academics or any other financial aid, and that is something that coaches use for their advantage because they know they're limited with their budget and the amount of scholarships. So knowing that they're getting a good student who has a very high grades, high SAT or ACT, and they know the university is going to give him $10,000-$20,000, that alleviates the coach from having to give him a lot of scholarships. So now the coach could use that scholarship for somebody else rather than having to give to that athlete. So yes, you add your academics with your athletic scholarship, and that's what we tell our clients. As important it is for you to do well in the sports field, train or study for your test and try to get a high as SAT, ACT. That's money that you're saving for your parents.
And this is probably the most important advice I could give from this episode. Academics are huge for student athletes, and sometimes you don't realize that. And I work with many different sports, and in my experience with soccer players, for example, the amount of responses you get from college coaches when you're dealing with a very very good student are incredibly higher in comparison to the amount of responses you get from somebody that is not there.
Yeah.
So being a very good student, having those high scores, will help you tremendously. Not only get the attention of the coach, but getting those scholarships you might need. Coach will not. I mean, imagine if you're a soccer coach, you have all these players and a very limited number or a very limited budget. So when you get a student that has high scores, that's going to get some sort of academic aid or other type of scholarships, that makes his life much easier, and he knows that he has a chance to recruit you. So it is fundamental. Being a good student and working hard your tests is very important.
Even more, coaches are evaluated at the end of the year based on this, not only on the athletic side, they evaluated on the average GPA of the team. So they want to get good students, good students that will get good grades in college, and that will elevate the average GPA from that team, and that makes the coach look very good too. So they want to have the full package.
Absolutely. And your academics speaks about you, and about your personality, how serious you are as a student, how committed you are, and that speaks volumes of who you are for the coaches.
Great. So if you guys are listening to this and you're thinking that just because you're a great athlete, that's it. No, it's a two thing. You're called student athlete. You're not called athlete student. So academics comes first. Get to the books.
Okay, Thomas, great advice about combining academics and athletics. That is huge. We're gonna go through it, in depth in our next episodes when we talk about financials and how to get the best scholarship possible. But today we're talking about athletic scholarships, and we have a very very special guest, someone who knows a lot about it as a student and as a coach. We're gonna talk to Laura Vallverdu. She's the former associate head coach at the University of Miami, and she's with us on the phone. So let's connect with her.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, so we got Laura Vallverdu on the line, and I'm very happy to have Laura. Laura is a very special person for me because besides I've known her for many years, since she was very young with her brother Daniel. They were very good players. They grew up they were born in Venezuela. They grew up, and Laura and Danny went to move to Spain, where they train at the Sanchez Casal and become very good players. Laura, she got as high as 500 WTA. Laura, is that true?
Yes, around that in singles and about maybe high 400s in doubles. Yes.
Okay, so that's pretty amazing. And I know you had your dream. You wanted to play pro, and your brother too. And your dad called me one day and said, "Hey, Thomas, I think we need to start looking into the college route. It's very hard to have not one kid but two kids on the tour. So what can we do?" And at that point, we started looking at many schools. And you both were very good prospects. And you ended up going to University of Miami. And you had a very successful career there, Laura. I mean, 131 wins, 5 All-Americans. That's not easy to get. How was it? How was that experience?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I was lucky enough to be guided by Paige, my coach, and who was basically my boss for a long time. And it was a good experience. I mean, I took it all in. I listened to every word they told me, and I basically was a full-blown student athlete. I did everything I could to follow my dream, to become the best that I could be. I mean, I wanted to play tennis, and I would say it was taken away from me a little bit because of financial difficulties with my family, like you said. But I definitely think that going to college now, if I look back, it was probably one of the best decisions that we could have made at that time.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Not only the 4 years, but after that, you went to do coaching, and you coached at Barry a little bit, I think. I remember. And then you went back to your alma mater and UM, and you were you ended up being the associate coach for the women's team, in a very successful career there too, right?
Yeah, it's again just very lucky. I mean, when I finished my bachelor's degree, I had a great relationship with the coach. I had a great relationship with the entire department. I did my job when I was there, and I was lucky enough that our former president, Donna Shalala, she basically said, if I wanted to get a master's. And so I graduated at UM, then I went to Barry. Like you said, I started actually my sports psychology degree in my master's. I was going to finish it off, but I realized that I didn't like it too much. I didn't like the way my life was being, I guess, how it was going. And I basically called back to UM. And I think because of everything that I did over there, I was lucky enough that they said they welcomed me back again, and they had the opportunity open for me. They gave me the graduate assistant type manager position where I actually got my master's paid off by So it was great. I mean, after that, I decided that I loved tennis too much and I couldn't leave the court, and it just kind of fell into my lap that I needed to start coaching. I left. I actually left after I finished my master's. I helped a little bit with the team there, so I got a taste of what that was. But I left. I went to Naples. I kind of went back again to my roots, to Sanchez Casal. I was training over there in Barcelona for 4 years before college. So I went over there. I mean, again, thank you to Emilio. He's amazing. I went there for about 3 months. And one day I just received a call from Paige that the position had opened up for the assistant job. And I said, yeah. And I basically went back over there, and I've been there since. And I stopped last year with them, and looking forward to different angles now, but it was amazing. I think from that experience, I took everything in. So I think has been great. College tennis it's a great avenue for everything.
Well, congratulations, really. You are a great role model, and I'm sure you could provide some great advice to a lot of the kids coming up. Many of them are thinking they want to play pro, others are confused, so I think you could give some good advice. So today, Laura, this program, this podcast we're doing today is about scholarships, and we already spent some time talking about the myth about scholarship. We talked about, that kids think that, that everybody who gets a scholarship has a full ride. Kids are thinking that there's a lot of scholarships that open up every year. Another myth is that scholarships are guaranteed for 4 years. Another myth is that you cannot combine athletic with other scholarships. So we talked about that a little bit, and I want to ask you, with your experience with scholarships, how many? Let's start by finding out how many kids, how many prospect players usually are contacting a team like Miami on, what would I say, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis? What's the volume?
I wouldn't say, I don't know if we want to discuss weekly basis, because I just think the recruiting game, if I may say, the recruiting cycle is it varies. But I mean, Thomas, I would receive emails all the time. I mean, it's getting very competitive, so I even would, reach out. I would say in a month, I would try to reach out to at least, 5 to 10 kids. Just reach out, whether you receive an answer or not, that's a different story. But you're reaching out, you're looking for them. I mean, I was receiving, I would say 10 emails every 2 weeks. I mean, and some of them, they would go to Paige, right? So I might not even see some, but yeah, it's a lot. And we're lucky that Miami is where it is, and I think it's been as successful as it's been. And I think they've seen the recruits that we've gotten in have also been successful themselves. So people do want to come. So it's a very popular.
Yeah, I don't blame. I don't blame people who wanted to come to Miami. But when you're talking to so many players a year, usually how many spots in average? How many spots usually open up every year?
The max that we had open up in 1 year was like 3 or 4, but that was an anomaly. That was because one got injured and left or something, and that was crazy. I mean, we only had that happen one time, which I wasn't happy. I was actually very sad for the kid, but it was just an anomaly. And then maybe one transfers, and then you have two seniors, something like that. But usually I would say one or two. I mean,
Yeah, one or
that would
two.
be it.
And sometimes there's years that there's none because you got nobody graduating. So with one or two spots opening, I could understand that you have to be very, very careful who do you give a scholarship. You're in women's tennis, so all your scholarships are full. But you have to be very careful, and I know because when we were dealing with you before, every time we had a player, the answer would be, well, let me look at her, let me compare her. It was always trying to be very careful that when you make that decision, you got the best player possible. Is that how it worked?
Yes, I mean, you don't want to, pull the trigger too early or too late. Like I said before, I call it a game. Recruiting is really a game. It is a business, and you are playing with lives and where people are going. But at the end of the day, it's all about timing. You got to see what you have like inside your team. You have to see personalities. You have to see, then compare everything: talent, personality, where they come from, who their coaches are, who their parents are, what their type of style is on the tennis court as a player. When they go to a tournament, we watch them and we see what type of player they are. Are the ones that they stick to themselves? Are the ones that they go and they're, hanging out with everybody in the tournament? Are the ones that are, maybe cheating, not cheating, fighting with the referees? Like, we look at everything, and then, you know, you start talking to the kids. Maybe you reach out, and then you're even listening to how they're speaking, what they're saying, the questions that they're asking. It's and sometimes it's hard because you might want a kid, but you don't have the scholarship, or you may not, have the right spot for them. I wasn't a coach that recruited for a spot. Neither was Paige, but we definitely recruited the best person and the more mature kid that we could, together with talent. And sometimes, you can speak to many, many players, from 20 to 30 kids, and then that list, changes because 10 of them are not answering, 3 of them decided to go to pros, and then 5 of them are going to another school. So that list continuously changes, and you just, there's no right way, or I cannot tell you the perfect time to make a decision. I cannot tell you the perfect way to do it, but definitely it's hard because you only have 1 or 2 spots.
And you try to minimize the risk by trying to find out as much as you can from that person, but that still does not guarantee you that that person is going to be a great match and is going to stay there for 4 years. So after the first year, by the way, have you guys given out scholarships guaranteed for 4 years?
No, that's
Okay.
not,
Okay.
no. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe athletic scholarships are signed for 1 year
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how we did it always, and I believe that's how it is NCAA wise, but I could be wrong there. I don't know.
Yeah, there's some. I mean, for the Power Five, there's some schools that could actually guarantee for 4 years a scholarship, but not that's a
Okay.
decision. That's a decision by each school. But let's say
Yeah.
after 1 year, let's say after during the year or after the year, what did you look at in terms of renewing? What did you look at in terms of renewing the scholarship of a player? I mean, what can actually be a reason why you would take it away or renew it?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm not working at right now anymore, so I wouldn't want to talk over, Paige, but just, I believe every coach has the decision to make. It's very personal, and it's very, subjective. I mean, everybody can make a decision they want. So, but in terms of us, it would just be, whether everything's going fine. I mean, you'll never get rid of a kid because they're not winning, right? You're responsible for that kid. You're responsible for their careers. You recruited them. So that obviously, and also NCAA wise, you cannot get rid of somebody because of their level.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot get rid of somebody because they're not performing. There's plenty of rules that you cannot just get rid of somebody. I mean, once you recruit somebody and you believe in them, if obviously you're a good person and a good coach, you would never think of that. But there's many different people out there, and that's why they have the rules. But for us and for me as a coach, it would just be whether you're breaking, team rules constantly, whether you're just not doing what you have to do. I mean, you have to document these things. You have to make sure that as a coach, you have your rules and everybody knows them, and that's just basically it. But there's the renewal. I mean, we never really dealt with not renewing somebody. They either understood and we had a good relationship that, listen, this is not going well, or they just wanted to be happy somewhere else. But we really never dealt with not renewing somebody. I think to get to that spot has to be really bad.
What
I mean,
happens?
that's
What happens with injury?
Injury, it's intricate. It's a case by case. I think it just, you have to do it like while you're doing your sport. Like it has to be. It just honestly, like I wouldn't even want to get into that just because it's case by case. But if you get injured doing your thing, being on the team, and doing everything that you were asked to do, you can never be. Your scholarship can never be taken away from you.
Right.
It's no, that's not how that works.
Yeah, of course. You're representing the school, and you're trying your best. It's not your fault if you twist an ankle, you break a bone. It just happens. Well, listen. I mean, I think this has been very useful. I mean, scholarship is always in the top of the mind. For internationals, of course, for the U.S. also, but U.S. have other financial aid that they could get either in state, or they could get, FAFSA or whatever. But internationals, they depend on athletic scholarship in a big part. And we try to, with this podcast, to educate them and make sure they understand that yes, there are other scholarships. There are plenty of scholarships out there. You just gotta understand that most will be partial, except for some sports and genders, like your case, women's tennis or women's basketball. They're all full, but in most cases, like in the men's tennis, it's a partial deal.
Yeah. So basically, for scholarships, the way it works, I think you understand. Obviously, there's public and private universities. The privates are funded by tuition and donations, and the public ones are financed by the government. For Americans, like you mentioned, the financial aid, they have the need-based, which is families' financial backgrounds. It depends.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the merit-based ones, the academic or the athletic ones. But for internationals, and I guess for everybody to understand, so in every division is different for the scholarships. So for tennis, which is either for tennis or for every sport, I don't know that, but I do know that for tennis in Division 1, you have, women's tennis is a head count sport, and men's tennis is an equivalency sport. So you have 8 scholarship for women, 8 full scholarship for women, and you have 4.5 for men. Basically what that means is we never dealt with that because obviously, like I said, we have 8 full scholarships, but the men, they can divide their scholarship percentages however they want. Somebody can have 100, somebody can have 70, 60, 50, 20. It just depends. They just have to get to 4.5 scholarships.
Yeah.
It's the same. Division 2 is the same for men and women. Is actually both equivalency sports.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get into the NIAA and the NJCAA, but those we might not have to get that in here. But and Division 3 you have no scholarships. So that's kind of how that works.
Yeah, and that's what parents need to understand. And I think once they understand that, it'll be easier to go through the process. Because our in our language, when you say beca means gratis. It means free. People think that I'm getting something for free, but a scholarship doesn't mean you're getting anything for free, But anyway,
Yeah.
Laura, I think this has been very useful. Carlos, you got any question? You
No,
good?
I just want to thank Laura for her time, and yeah, great advice for everyone. And yeah, let's stay in touch and let's keep going.
Yeah. Well, Laura, listen. Good luck. Thanks for the
Thank
time,
you.
and good luck for your future. Like I said, you're one of our advisors. So anytime we're talking with girls who are good players who are looking to play Division 1 or maybe even Division 2, talking to you is very very educative, and they could learn a lot from what you have to advise. So thanks for everything, and we'll definitely be in
Thank you,
touch.
guys.
Okay, Laura, take care.
All right. Have a good
Okay,
one.
bye bye.
Take care.
Okay, so great conversation with Laura. She's great, taking the time to, be part of our podcast. And I wanted to add, one thing that is always part of the scholarship discussion is what I deserve. I deserve a scholarship. That type of mentality, for some reason, is in many student athletes. I think has to do with the development process, or all that competition, all that investment from the families, and what the coaches say to them, and it is sometimes it's not like that. It's not that you don't deserve it. It's not that getting the spot on the team is a huge merit.
Yeah.
Only being recruited, that is a merit. If in top of that you're getting a scholarship, that is a double merit.
Yeah.
And it's tremendously, you are doing something incredible once you get a scholarship. So you need to be aware of how big it is, to get a scholarship offer, even if it is a partial one, and how hard it is for a student athlete to get that.
I think a lot is peer pressure too. The kids among kids, they hear other kids, friends of them, teammates are getting scholarships, so they have that peer pressure that they also think they should get one.
Right.
And you're not supposed to compare with anybody. You just got to worry about your own and make sure you're going to the right school and deserve whatever you deserve.
That is right. Okay, so let's go through our USP class section, the class of 2020. We have 3 great student athletes to congratulate today.
Okay.
Number 1, Sofia Colve. She is committed to Delta State University, Mississippi. What can you say about Sofia?
Well, Sophia comes from a tradition of brothers, sisters, cousins. There's many Colves that are going to college here. So she comes from Spain. We like her a lot. Very talented. She's a good student. So we think she has a lot to do, and Delta State would be a perfect mix for her.
Yeah, and we have a Delta State alumni here in the office, Natalia over there. So she was super happy to know that Sofia was going to her alma mater. Yeah. Okay, number 2, Renato Menezes from Brazil. He's going to North Carolina Wesleyan College.
Yeah. We're getting more and more Brazilians.
Yeah.
Natalia has to do with.
Yeah, Natalia is doing a great job over there, and Brazil has so many people in general, but the level of athleticism and the discipline in many sports in Brazil is huge.
Yeah.
And there are great student athletes coming from Brazil. The language is probably the biggest challenge, as from any other non-English speaking country, but they are doing a great job incorporating English to the curriculums. Many go to international high schools, and we're getting more student athletes from Brazil every year.
Yeah, North Carolina was laying a perfect mix again. A small private university, probably liberal arts school too. He's going to do well there.
And then number 3, we have Joachim Scheffer from Norway, and he's going to Northern Arizona University.
Yeah. I think he's going to be one of the better players there. We know Joaquin well. He comes to the showcases. He came twice. He's a strong player in Europe. So I think Northern Arizona is getting a top player, good kids. All these Norwegians, are good students. They speak language. They speak the English with no problem.
Solid players.
Yeah, solid players. So he's going to do well.
Perfect. Okay, so that's our show, the University Sports Podcast. I want to thank everyone for being there on the other side and listening to our show. Thank you to Laura Vallverdu, former associate head coach, University of Miami. I want to thank Sebastian Ramirez, our producer today, and thank you, Thomas.
All right. Well, thank you.
For more information about USP, please visit our website, universitysports.com. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at University Sports. And you can find us on YouTube as well, University Sports. Feel free to send us all your questions via social media or email at contact@universitysports.com. I'm Carlos Sonate. And this is USP.